Welcome to Gardening with the Gardiners, a podcast where we discuss our favorite plants, gardens, landscape design, and all things horticulture, with a touch of our crazy homestead lifestyle thrown in.
I'm one of your hosts, Matthew Boone Gardner, a horticulturalist, landscape designer, and fourth-generation owner-operator of Boone Gardner Landscape.
And I'm Hope Gardner, Matt's wife, a horticulturalist with our local county extension office, as well as a landscape designer with the family business. And together we make up
Gardening with the Gardiners.
Hello, and welcome to our very first episode of Gardening with the Gardiners.
First episode, here we are.
Can't believe it, we're finally doing it.
Yes, so
We've talked about this for...
at least 2, 3.
Well, we started talking, and this was before podcasts actually came along, but we started talking about doing some type of...
something, videos or something.
Yes, I think originally it was videos. That was back, 15 years ago.
Probably.
And then I guess the creation of podcasts came along. We've been talking about this for 2 to 3 years.
Long time.
Yeah.
So we're finally... hopefully seeing this through. We've committed to it. And
believe it or not, it does take a lot to get one of these started.
yeah, it surprised me, actually.
Yes, but we're here.
So you thought it would be a good thing to do is start with our history.
Yes. So the very first episode, I wanted to just go back into kind of while we're here, what right do we have to do a podcast, and what our history was, so people can kind of get to know us.
And moving forward, we'll do more plant segments.
Oh, yeah.
And more, everything from...
we got a little plant segment in here, too. Just keep going.
Okay.
So first tell us, let's start with you.
Okay.
And Boone Gardner has a very, very long history. So tell us kind of who Boone Gardner was and how it got started.
Okay. So we're the Louisville area's oldest landscaping garden nursery business, and one of the oldest in the state. And Francis Boone Gardner is who our founder was, and his name was Boone Gardner.
Yeah, because most people ask me, are you a Boone or are you a Gardner? And actually, it was just one person.
Yes.
But he went by his middle name.
Francis Boone Gardner, had a nursery with a brother for a while, and then decided to move to Louisville.
Okay.
And in May 15th, 1899 is when he closed on this property, which is now modern-day Gardner Lane, the Bardstown Road area.
And at the time, it was called Fonda Vera.
The property itself was called Fonda Vera.
Okay.
And there's all this lore and kind of history and stuff around this property. So
do I remember that the property it's no longer there now.
Unfortunately, the house is no longer. Everybody always asks.
But it was close to a skating rink or something off of?
Well, his whole farm, I think, was that whole area.
Okay, but the house was kind of in that area of Gardner Lane, if somebody's wondering where it was.
I think a few blocks down, maybe.
Okay.
And so supposedly, or not supposedly, but French Cistercian monks built this house back in the 1700s or so. It was a mission house, and it was a home of a wealthy French family. And the lore has it, and this is true because Philson Club backs this part up, is that, King Louis Philippe was exiled from France. Mm-hmm. And apparently he spent time in Switzerland and all these other places, even came to America, and even spent time in Kentucky and was down in Bardstown for a while. And supposedly, according to this history that we've seen, he lived in this house on our old site before my great-grandfather was there. But still,
it does connect how close Louisville was with that French history, I guess.
Exactly. And so Boone Gardner quickly developed a name for himself in a time when it was kind of unusual to be doing landscape gardens and plans and things like that. But they did all kinds of plantings for home grounds, schools, factories, railroad stations, parks. The Olmsted Park system and Eastern Parkway. I know those big pin oaks in Eastern Parkway, he planted those as a memorial to the veterans of World War I.
How neat is it that you can go all over Louisville and look at trees that your family planted back in, 1899, I think is when it started, or the early 1900s.
It's pretty cool.
All the big trees came from Boone Gardner.
I don't know about all of them, but quite a few.
Yes.
So, and then it's neat because, I mean, history always kind of, whether it's my grandfather or usually more my grandfather or my father, I get people saying something about history. But even a few years ago, we always had to renew our nursery license through University of Kentucky. And one of the people there sent this file. They still had scanned a photo, obviously, but it was a picture of Boone Gardner back in the 1900s with his early 1900s, obviously, with his like four of his guys in front of his fumigatorium.
Okay, that's something that you don't hear about. What is a fumigatorium?
The fumigatorium, it sounds like Waverly Hospital, like the tuberculosis ward or something.
It's a tuberculosis ward for plants.
So it's a shed or a shack that they would treat. They put nursery stock in there, fruit trees, other nursery stock, and basically use the pesticide and gas them out to get rid of pest, and then they would close it up and then bring them out. So anyways.
Well, that's kind of neat.
Yeah, it is cool. So Granddad was born in 1916, and when he was in high school, Boone Gardner apparently passed away suddenly, and he left, obviously a large family. Granddad was seventh of 9, and he was the only male, so he had 8 sisters.
So back in the early 1900s, he was responsible. He was the man of the house all of a sudden.
They were operating the nursery business at Gardner Lane, and as time evolved, they sold that all property off, and they moved out to what is now the corner of Hurstburn Lane and Shelbyville Road, but this is before North Hurstburn Lane ran through. So
urban sprawl got them back in the early 1900s.
It was back then. It was called Shelbyville Turnpike, so US 60.
Okay.
And Hurstburn Parkway, of course. I still say Hurstburn Lane, but
the Forum Shopping Center.
Yes, thank you. That's it.
Was the 60 acres?
Yes. And that's when they had, that was one of Boone Gardner's heydays. Boone Gardner Garden Center, Granddad took it and just created this behemoth garden center. It was spectacular. And he operated that from 1933 to 1985. I only knew of it for 10 years of my life because I was born in 1975, and then we moved in 1985. But at least those 10 years, I had these wonderful, vivid memories of this garden center. It was just, all garden centers are magical, but it was particularly magical. Massive greenhouses and just the neat feelings of going there as a child, the magical time of, this steamed greenhouse in the wintertime or Christmas, Christmas time. They really did huge Christmas festivals and things like that. And
well, because I'm assuming, and I wasn't from the Louisville area, and I'm assuming that there really weren't a lot of garden centers, and especially large ones.
No, it's not like nowadays with Lowe's and Home Depot and then so many other garden centers and things. You were limited on your choices for sure. He also had a farm in Skylight in Oldham County and had a nursery out there where he grew large trees and kind of more woody nursery stock, things like that out there. And, it was a large enough farm. It was like over 800 acres. He had tobacco and pigs and cattle. But, nursery, that's kind of his main focus, obviously. So my father was the oldest of his children, Daniel Stevens Gardner. And he was born in 1937. And he grew up working with Granddad along with his 4 other brothers. So there's 5 boys. You can imagine what
That's a rough and rowdy household, I bet.
So Dad was the oldest of 5 boys. And Granddad, I'm sure he could be tough. So,
well, you had to be.
Yeah. For whatever, maybe they clashed heads, I guess. Dad split off for a while and started Gardner Landscape Business and moved out to Eastwood and bought a farm out there. And he had 60 acres as well. And he had this old barn that he renovated and turned to his landscape design offices, which was really cool. And then there was a nursery part of that, and across the street, across the old Flat Rock Road, there was the old historic house, which was a stagecoach stop between Louisville and Shelbyville.
So you actually had us have a stagecoach stop between Shelbyville and Louisville, Kentucky.
He had the landscape design business, did very well with it. He had it was focused on high-end residential, commercial, those kind of properties. And he also did large trees. He was the first person in the area to do the large tree spades, which are those massive truck-mounted spades that dig, massive,
big trees.
Big trees, yeah. And then he also had Watches Grow liquid fertilizer. Granddad retired and sold the old Boone Gardner Garden Center property in 1985, and then they moved it out to my dad's location, or they built a new garden center, the Eastwood location, which a lot of people know. You obviously know.
Yep.
And that was 1985, and then eventually Dad basically merged Gardner Landscape with Boone Gardner Garden Center. Dad also did a development in the back of the property called Gardner Park, which is there now. It's a small housing development. When Dad loved the Cotswolds in central England, and he wanted to make like a village type housing residential area that had that kind of comfy, gardeny, feel to it. So we had the old pond, and the house is now around this old pond that we all grew up having parties and family picnics and things on. So it's quite lovely. I went to University of Kentucky, and I studied horticulture, landscape architecture, design, plant and soil science. And I was there from 94 to 98. And then I graduated, and this is back then. I had two brothers and a sister in the business, and my stepmother, and obviously my father, and among all our employees. Unfortunately, as life throws curveballs at you, Dad was diagnosed with colon cancer and died 6 months later in February 1999.
Wow.
Yeah. And it was obviously very difficult. And family businesses being what they are, they're tricky things. So people started peeling off, doing their different things, taking different parts of the business. Make a very long story short, my stepmother and I were left running the business, and we had the garden center still in Eastwood, and then the landscape design part of it. And we had still a very good business, doing great, but we didn't have we separated some other parts off. And then that's
when I come in.
That's where you start to come in.
Okay. So that's a pretty cool history. I mean, that's a lot of years in a very short amount of time. My history is not nearly that long. I grew up in central Kentucky, in Versailles. We had a cattle farm behind us and a horse farm in front of us. So, if I couldn't live in the country, that was the next best thing.
Yes.
My grandparents still had the farm. So my first probably horticulture memory, I don't remember how old I was, but I do remember
And that farm was a neat old history property.
My grandmother's?
Yes.
Oh, it's amazing. Her house was completed the year Kentucky became a Commonwealth in
That's
1792.
Cool.
It really is.
And would you tell me the story about they even made the bricks on site?
The bricks were made on site, and the
timbers, I guess.
Yeah, timbers. They're all hand hewn, and you can tell. It's just really, really neat. So I would go down there every Sunday, spend summers there, running around the fields. My grandparents had a huge vegetable garden and kept running around harvesting. I can remember Granddad harvesting potatoes, and my cousins and I would pull potatoes out of the ground as he was taking the tractor through, and we were naming the potatoes. Who looked like Mickey Mouse and,
so that's Fran and Bill.
That's my grandparents, Fran and Bill. Yep.
And who was more the gardener? Both of them, or?
No. Oh, gosh. So my grandfather had actually been sheriff of our county.
Tell them that part. I love this. So Hope is literally, my joke is, and I've learned it from her, but she grew up in Mayberry, and she literally did, and her grandfather was the sheriff.
Yes. And my dad looks like Andy Griffith. So
literally.
So my grandfather was sheriff, and then he later became county clerk. So I would walk down Main Street from school, my elementary school, and hang out with him at the courthouse until it was time to go to the farm if I had to. But like I said, we grew up on the South Main side. My mom's family, their house was on the North Main Street side of town. So I could literally walk up and down Main. My dad's parents were, I think it was 5 miles out of town is their farm. But, grew up, we would, in the fall, we would shuck corn and then, feed the cows across the fence. So, I just had an idyllic little, time growing up in, rural or central Kentucky. Loved being outside. Everything I wanted to do was outside. I was not a tomboy, but I definitely wanted to be around my dad. I went fishing with my dad. My dad taught me how to dove hunt.
Daddy's little girl.
I was daddy's little girl.
You still are.
Still am. Granddaddy's little girl, daddy's little girl, just really wanted to be outside. My dad was in the tobacco industry. He had tobacco warehouses. Grew up running around the warehouse floor.
Yeah.
When I was 15, he got me a job with one of the seed companies, so I actually pollinated tobacco seeds. I thought it was going to be the best, working out, having a wonderful suntan out in the field. Now I laugh that from, my fingers, the tips of my fingers to the second knuckle have no freckles. The rest of my body does, because I got burned so bad that summer. It was not the farm experience that I expected, but I did survive that, and I loved actually being able to pollinate tobacco flowers to make seed. So, I just
But at
always
that point, you appreciated agriculture, but you weren't thinking at that point that you were going to go into agriculture or horticulture.
at that point, I don't know that there were a lot of opportunities for girls in agriculture still. My mom wanted me to be in, she had a clothing store. So I had one foot in the clothing store. I did modeling. I worked for her. I did all that. And then the other foot I would have, with my dad in a duff field
Yep.
or, going fishing. I loved being outside. So when I went to Western, I never thought I was going to go into agriculture. I was going to go into business. I was going to go into fashion merchandising. I kept trying to find a major that I really liked enough to study. And it wasn't until my junior year, I guess the end of my sophomore year, going into my junior year, I was like, I got to graduate in 2 years. And the only thing I liked enough to study was going to be horticulture. My last college class that I had to have to graduate was studying the gardens of Great Britain. So I went to King's College and had a really great summer studying all the gardens over in the Great Britain area. And then I came back and was very fortunate to have a job. I was hired by a very small company doing landscape design work. And when he didn't have design work for me, he would throw me on the maintenance crews. And so I was doing maintenance, pushing lawnmowers, weed eaters, whatever needed to be done.
The guys are always impressed that this little cute little girl would actually get out there and work as hard as them. It's not circles around them.
Well, I was raised that
You had to prove yourself.
yeah, I had to prove myself. I was going to make sure that I pulled my own weight.
And you still do.
You're exactly right. But yeah, I learned to push lawnmowers, and it was before, like, this was right when they came out with those big ones.
Oh, yeah, the big
zero
zero
turns
turns,
and
yeah.
things. And so they probably weighed about 4 times as much as I did at the time.
Oh, yeah.
And I think I was drug half of it. But, I did work like that in the industry. And then I did work for a landscape or a retail garden center in the Lexington area. That was a very old family business as well. Left there and started another landscape or a retail garden center in the Nicholasville area that's become very popular. Started there. And so I really couldn't find my niche. So I interviewed with the Department of Agriculture and I got a job. Our commissioner said, look, I'm very impressed on what, here's 3 opportunities you can have. Which job would you like? And I was like, well, I'll just do PR and communication. That sounded fun. I did that and had an absolute blast. Commissioner Smith was one of the amazing men in agriculture. It was such a good opportunity. I did that for about a year, and they walked in my office and they said, hey, do you know something about plants? I'm like, well, I graduated, yeah. And so I started certifying organic farms and ran the Certified Organic program.
The whole program.
Loved it. So I ran the Certified Organic program, had a great time doing that. And they're like, hey, can you help some of these like nursery guys? You know trees, right? And I was like, sure. So I started working with the nursery greenhouse industry, put together an availability
You were the marketing
guide.
specialist.
Yes. Put
And
together.
Kentucky Proud.
Yeah, I'm getting to that point too. I really had a great time working with the nursery industry. Did the availability guide, did a lot of the trade shows. Then we started working on the Kentucky Proud. And so I was in the initial group of marketing specialists that put together the original Kentucky Proud campaign. We worked really, really hard on that. And of course, it's developed, it's grown and matured, and it's absolutely phenomenal. And it really does help agriculture. Yes.
If I can interrupt. And so that's
As you do.
That's when we met.
Yes. So we met because
I was hosting the Louisville Nursery Association meeting
yeah.
at the Eastwood Boone Gardner Garden Center.
So a mutual nursery friend of ours had said, you need to know more of the Louisville contingency. I knew the Lexington market very, very well. And he said, you've got to learn, you've got to come and meet the nursery industry in Louisville. And so our friend Mike Ray with Carl Ray Nursery invited me to Boone Gardner. I was coming from Frankfort. And I have to laugh because I had to call the garden center like 3 times going, how do I find this place? I didn't know Louisville.
We weren't hard to find, but
You
yeah.
weren't. But when you don't know where you're going, it was difficult. So I went up there and had a great time meeting some of the most wonderful nursery people. And
Especially this guy over here.
well, there was this young punk, is what I always say. And I didn't really know, the Louisville market, so I was just kind of getting to know you. But what I was really impressed with is the amount of plants, and you actually had, and I'll never forget, my favorite tree. And most people don't know this tree. But Richard Weber introduced it to me when I was working for him at Springhouse. And so Springhouse Nursery
No,
in
I know,
Nicholasville.
but can I say the tree or are you going to say it?
The Stewardia.
Stewardia.
Pseudocamellia.
Yeah.
But I love, love, love Stewardias.
They're beautiful trees, but they're very high maintenance.
Which you always say is why I like them so much. But I can remember I talked you out of, well, I mean, I paid for it, but I got a little bit of a discount.
You were impressed with my nursery stock and
Yes.
my plant Latin.
Yes, you have always
Wooed you with that.
with my plant, with your plant Latin. So then this is kind of how our story begins, is because I bought that Swartia from you. You knew how much I loved it. Several months go by, and I, with the,
State Fair.
no, it was
Well,
before that.
Oh.
It was actually at the Southern Nursery Association meeting down in Atlanta, Georgia. I had a trade show booth with the marketing
That's right.
directory. And you came up to me, remembering how much I like Stewardias, and said, "Hey, this guy that breeds Stewardia
It was
is
Dr.
talking."
Tom Rainey of NC
State, yeah.
And he was doing a talk on Stewardias and other cool plants. And so I said, why don't you come sit in this talk with me?
And I was like, "Oh, thanks. That's really nice of you, but I don't leave my trade show booth." And you're like, "Come on, the guys next door, they'll just watch it. It's a quick talk." And so I did something that I've never done, and I left my trade show booth because I wanted to hear Dr. Rainey talk about the breeding program at NC State. And then I have to say, I was like, wow, that kid, that young punk at the time, he remembered how much I like Stewardias. So if you don't know Stewardias, it's a wonderful tree, and we do have a native Stewardia. It's not the Pseudocamellia, but it is a native Stewardia here in Kentucky. We met because of the Stewardia. We went to Tom Rainey's talk at the Southern Nursery Association about the Stewardia. When we got engaged, you actually told me, and I love this story. I think it's hysterical. You
gotta tell my
called
engagement
me.
story.
Oh, do you want to tell it?
Well, I know. I'm saying you go ahead.
Okay, so you
I
called
didn't know you
me.
were going to tell the story.
You called me in Lexington and said, "Hey, I got this plant in. It's something new that's just arrived. You've got to come see it. It's a Stewardia. It's got big coral blooms instead of the white ones.
It's a strange Japanese variety called
Yes.
Williuma rime.
Stewardia Williuma rime."
Yes.
I never picked up on anything. I was all excited. So I come up to Louisville. We're having dinner. We go to the greenhouse to see this tree.
So I take her in the greenhouse at night. It's always good.
It's magical. Yeah.
There was a storm moving in. It hadn't quite gotten there yet. And I had taken a plant. It wasn't a Stewardia.
No, it was the
actually-
pea shrub. It was a weeping pea shrub.
Yeah. I had actually printed a full tag and had Stewardia Williuma rime and put that on the tag. And I put this ridiculously gaudy coral rose bloom, which has nothing to do with anything. But the whole point was it's supposed to look ridiculous. So
In a ring box.
In a ring box. So all this is in the tree. And so I bring her in there and I show her this plant and she's looking at it kind of like, what is going on here? I don't understand this. And I'll let you.
Somebody tied something in this tree.
And you're like, what's this flower? It looks, you're like, this is
I
not.
still was not clued in.
Well, it took you a while. And then finally I was like, read the tag. And you're like, okay, so what does that mean? And
Yeah.
and
So if you clued in, for those of you listening, Williuma rime, it's actually Will You Marry Me? But I didn't even pick that up.
well, who would?
Somebody reading a plant tag should.
So then I got down on one knee and you were kind of like, oh my gosh, this is really happening. And you
And
kind
the
of
biggest
you braced yourself in the
clap
greenhouse.
of thunder.
Yes. And I was like, so? And you're like, yes. You kind of hesitated.
Yeah, I did hesitate. I was taken by surprise. And then this big clap of lightning and thunder because the storm was rolling in. And it shook the panes of the greenhouse. It was,
it's
it
so
was very
romantic.
dramatic. Yeah, dramatic. And so Stewardias have really been a big part of our history. And so I think kind of getting to know us and knowing about the Stewardia is a really neat thing.
Yes. So then you came and I probably already said this, but you joined us at the garden center.
Yeah, I lasted not quite a full year.
Well, because you got pregnant with Crane.
Right. No, I actually came to work at the garden center before we got pregnant with Crane, our son.
Yes.
And then I literally worked at the garden center until the day before he arrived,
Yes.
and then took him into the garden center and worked until he got too big to take naps, and had
Yes.
to go home.
And then eventually, Sandy decided to sell the land, and the
That
public's.
was right at the same time because I think she announced that right when we
Sandy's my
found out.
stepmother.
Yeah, right when we found out we were pregnant with Crane, our son.
So she decided she had ownership of the land, and she decided she wanted to sell that and get out of it. And so then, ironically, the Publix that is down there 20 years later just got built, just got finished a couple of months ago.
Yeah, she sold that land for a neighborhood grocery store
Yep.
to move in, and it took them 20 years to
Get the deal.
yeah.
So then we moved to Udell. Well, Munition. So Udell was renting, has bought the property that is the old Munition Potts, another nursery family florist. They still florist, still in the business. It was their old property, and it had sat kind of fallow. It was needed a lot of work. I mean,
Yeah.
we put a lot of sweat equity in that place, and brought it, worked our tails off, and put some neat display gardens in. Had a petting zoo, had the garden center there.
Tell them about the petting zoo because that was really kind of funny.
You tell them about the petting zoo, the USDA petting zoo.
Yeah. So our son we moved out to the property and our son started kindergarten. And he came home one day and he said, I want a Tasmanian devil. And I said, I don't think so. And so we went back and forth and back and forth. And he actually agreed that he wanted a pig. So we got a pig. And
That was the potbelly pig that you got from.
No, we got the farm
Oh,
pigs.
the farm pig first. Then
Yeah.
then the potbelly pigs.
So
later
we
on.
first got chickens, and then we had dairy goats, we had rabbits. He wanted a pig. And so his friends wanted to come out and see the baby pigs, the piglets. And so
Well, we got into the whole homesteading thing,
yes.
and then we had it at the garden center, so we're like, you somehow figured out we could have a USDA certified petting zoo.
So animal control found out about it because people were coming out to see the animals, and we had a retail business. They said you have to be a certified petting zoo. We had hand washing facilities with a restroom, and so they're like,
So then
you've
you
got to
started-
be a petting zoo.
Well, and you started doing birthday parties and school groups,
we
and
had
that was so much
a great
fun.
time. Yes, and our
Camden
kids-
Elementary, and yeah,
we had a lot of
schools.
birthday parties and school groups out to see the animals. And the neat thing was it gave the kids an opportunity to see, livestock. It wasn't like it was a zoo.
No,
We didn't have zebras and elephants or anything like that. We just had regular farm animals.
And you showed them the
But-
plants and the vegetables and
We
tomatoes.
grew,
and,
we had a CSA. So we had a lot of vegetables. I remember arguing with one lady that was not an onion because it was in the ground. But yes, we had lots of vegetables for people to see. We started honeybees out there. So we had our own honey. We had our own vegetables. We sold eggs. So we had a really neat environment for the kids
Yeah.
to grow up. The fun thing about the animals was that it was the old greenhouses, and it had the sidewalk that went right through the middle. So with the kids, they weren't really in with the animals, but they could see them and pet them through the
get
fence.
real close to them. Yeah.
And so we had fun ways for the kids to feed all the animals. So with the dairy goats, we put the feed in an ice cream cone. With the pigs, and I love this, we had so much fun. The pigs actually, we would throw camping marshmallows. And so we had a great time.
So then we were there for about 10 years. And
Uh-huh.
now 10 years later, we're here at our current location.
So we did decide to close the retail operation, possibly temporarily.
Yeah,
but
we may get
did-
back into it. You never know. We toy around with that idea.
As you know, I think we had some recessions in there, and really felt for the business it was best to maybe close retail and just really focus on design installation.
Well, and the kids were young, and I wanted to
Yeah,
spend time
good.
with them, so I shrunk the business down, and we became kind of a boutique landscape design installation business, but doing great things.
when the
awesome
kids
jobs,
have
and-
always grown up in this industry and helped. Lily's helped.
Oh yeah.
Our daughter has helped. We've got pictures of her in the greenhouse with potting up plants. Our son Crane is at University of Kentucky studying plant and soil science, and he works in the summers for the business.
He is going to be the 5th generation.
Yeah.
So,
So
now,
this is really a
yeah.
family business.
so we got the 5th generation coming along, and we will probably. I know he will. We'll grow things, and it'll be exciting to see what we do in the future when he graduates.
Yes. And
So.
as Gardening with the Gardiners, that might be that he pops in for an episode or two.
Oh, I'm sure he will.
Yes.
I'm sure he will.
So I think that basically wraps things up as far as who we are and how we got here, and I guess
Long
a little bit of
story.
who to come.
Yeah, sorry if it was too long, but we talk a lot.
It's just the introduction.
Just the introduction.
And we did throw some plants in too with our Stewardia.
Thank you for listening to Gardening with the Gardeners. Please subscribe or follow us to get new episode updates. And please drop a rating or review. If you have a question, either gardening, landscape, or horticulturally related, you can email us at gwtg@boonegardner.com. Thank you for listening to Gardening with the Gardeners.